The courthouse doors burst wide open as an 8-year-old boy rushes inside, tears streaming down his face, struggling to keep his balance. "Please, please help my mama," he cries out, his voice breaking. Security moves quickly toward him, but Judge Judy lifts her hand, stopping them instantly. The boy lifts his arm and points straight at the defendant. His voice trembles as he begins revealing something he was never meant to say. The room falls into complete silence. His mother's face drains of color. What the judge uncovers next doesn't just reveal a lie, it tears apart a deeply buried family secret, leaving everyone in the courtroom shaken, especially the child himself. The gavel remains suspended in the air, ready to strike, as the boy's shaky finger stays directed at the defendant. No one dares to move, not even her. The young boy stands there, chest rising and falling rapidly, eyes swollen and red, trying to stay strong but clearly overwhelmed with each unsteady breath. Judge Judy gestures for the bailiff to step back. She leans slightly forward, the overhead lights catching the fading tear marks on the boy's cheeks. "Take your time," she says gently. Her voice is calm, but the weight of the moment presses heavily on everyone present. It's not often that a child becomes the center of truth in a courtroom. The boy gulps, struggling to speak. She told me not to say anything," he murmurs, pointing again, his hand shaking uncontrollably. The defendant shifts in her seat, forcing a smile that comes too quickly and feels too unnatural. "I don't even talk to that child," she says abruptly. "He's just confused." Judge Judy turns her gaze toward her, a look so steady it makes the room feel smaller. "No one asked you anything," she responds calmly. Her voice is controlled yet firm enough to cut through the tension. At the plaintiff's table, the boy's mother sits pale and motionless, subtly shaking her head as if silently pleading with her son to stop. Her hands are tightly clasped together, her knuckles turning white. Fear, shame, and exhaustion flicker across her face before she lowers her eyes, trying to disappear. But the boy notices, and something inside him gives way. "She said if I told, something bad would happen to Mummy," he says, his voice cracking. The words are quiet, but they hit hard. A ripple of shock moves through the gallery. Even the bailiff shifts uneasily. The defendant's forced smile vanishes. "That's not true, he's making it up," she protests. But the boy continues as if he can no longer hold it in. "And she said, Mummy had to do what she told her." His hands twist together tightly, as though trying to keep himself from falling apart. Judge Judy watches him closely, her focus sharp, taking in every detail, the tremble in his voice, the guilt in his posture, the fear in his eyes. "Who told you to stay quiet?" she asks, her tone soft but unwavering. The boy presses his lips together as tears well up again, then nods toward the defendant. She immediately shakes her head, panic creeping into her expression. No, that's not what happened. He misunderstood." The judge lifts her hand, and silence instantly fills the room again. Everyone can feel it. This is only a piece of the truth, and what remains could shatter far more than just a lie. She leans forward slightly, her eyes narrowing. "Tell me," she says. "What else did she tell you to keep secret?" The boy's last words seem to linger in the air as he drops his gaze to the floor, as if saying anything more might cause everything to collapse beneath him. Judge Judy studies him carefully. Something delicate has started to come undone. The bailiff, guided more by instinct than protocol, brings over a small chair. Judge Judy nods, allowing the boy to sit, not as a witness, not as evidence, but as a child caught in the consequences of adult decisions. His feet barely reach the ground. His hands remain tightly clasped in his lap, as if even they cannot be trusted. "Take a breath," Judge Judy says softly. "You're safe here." But safety feels uncertain in this room. The mother remains stiff at the table, her gaze fixed downward, her shoulders caving inward under the weight of truth. Tears gather in her eyes, but she refuses to let them fall. Her silence isn't emptiness, it's protection built over years of quiet endurance. Judge Judy shifts her attention back to the defendant. "You claimed you never spoke to this boy, yet he says you warned him not to talk. I'm giving you a chance to explain that." The defendant lets out a sharp, misplaced laugh. "Kids make things up, they're emotional, dramatic. Stop." Judge Judy cuts in, her voice precise and firm. "Children might misinterpret adult situations, but they don't invent fear this detailed." The defendant's expression tightens. Her eyes flicker not toward the judge, but toward the mother. There's something in that look, not anger, but control. A silent signal. The mother sees it and immediately shrinks further into herself. Judge Judy notices. So does everyone else. "Mom," she says, turning gently to the mother, "I need you to speak. Did this woman ever tell your son to stay quiet?" The mother parts her lips, but no words come out. She tries again, her breath catching as her shoulders begin to shake. Her hands twist together tightly. I don't want trouble," she whispers at last. The defendant steps forward slightly, confidence returning. "See? She knows this is being exaggerated." "Sit down," Judge Judy orders, her tone low but absolute. The defendant freezes in place. The judge studies the mother again, her eyes narrowing not with anger, but with understanding, experience, and a deeper intuition that something far more serious is hidden beneath the surface. Recognition settles in. She has witnessed this kind of silence before, the quiet of someone living under constant, unseen pressure. The kind that leaves no marks on the body but wears down the soul. Judge Judy leans back slightly, thinking, then turns her attention toward the clerk. "I want the document the boy mentioned." A wave of tension moves across the room. The defendant stiffens immediately. The mother's face loses what little color it had left. Even the boy's breathing falters. Judge Judy taps her pen once, sharp and decisive. "Bring me the file," she says, "the one neither of you wanted me to see." As the defendant begins to speak, the mother flinches so suddenly it's as if an old memory struck her. The reaction doesn't go unnoticed. Everyone sees it. The defendant's voice slices through the heavy air coated in artificial concern. "Your Honor, she's overwhelmed. She doesn't understand." Judge Judy raises a single finger. That small motion silences the room instantly. "I didn't ask you," she says, her voice even, but carrying a clear warning. The defendant's lips press shut, though her eyes still flicker with the confidence of someone used to regaining control. But that control is already slipping. Judge Judy turns back to the mother. "Ma'am, I asked whether this woman told your son to stay quiet." Her tone softens, not out of sympathy, but out of understanding. She can see the fatigue in the mother's posture, the fear in the way her fingers tug at her sleeves, the years of holding back the truth until silence became second nature. The mother tries to speak, but her throat tightens. Her lips part, tremble, then close again. She presses her hands together as if trying to keep herself from breaking in front of everyone. Her voice is barely there. She swallows and tries again, still staring down. "I don't want trouble." Judge Judy studies her for a long, quiet moment. "Maybe trouble found you," she says gently. Across the room, the boy watches his mother with a kind of heartbreak that feels far too heavy for someone his age. He leans forward slightly in his chair, searching her face for courage, for honesty, something familiar. He doesn't find it. Not yet. The defendant notices the hesitation and steps forward again, her confidence slowly returning. "Your Honor, she gets confused. She misremembers things. I help her with forms, decisions, responsibilities. She depends on me." The mother's eyes lift for just a second. That single glance tells a completely different story. Dependence isn't what's there. It's something closer to control, something quieter, heavier. Judge Judy catches it instantly. "Ma'am," she asks carefully, "are you speaking freely right now?" The mother's breath catches. Her shoulders stiffen as she seems to shrink inward, as if privacy could somehow return in this public space. Tears threaten again, but she forces them back. "I'm fine," she whispers. She isn't. Everyone in the courtroom feels it. Then, almost imperceptibly, the defendant shifts closer to the mother. It isn't an open threat, but it's enough. The mother recoils ever so slightly. "That's all the judge needs." "Clerk," Judge Judy says, her voice now firm and sharp, "bring me the folder the child referred to." The atmosphere tightens instantly. The defendant's composure cracks, the color draining from her face. The mother closes her eyes, her body folding inward as if preparing for impact. The boy grips the edges of his chair, his small knuckles turning pale. He knows that file. He understands what it holds. Judge Judy rests her hand steadily on the desk. "When this folder opens," she says quietly, "the truth comes with it." When the clerk returns with the file, the entire room seems to shift. Not colder, heavier, as if the truth itself carries weight. The bailiff places the folder gently on the bench, but even that soft sound feels loud, final. Across the room, both women react instantly. The defendant straightens, her posture rigid, hands tightly clasped as her eyes lock onto the folder with a mix of fear and calculation, as though she's already trying to reshape her story. The mother doesn't look at it at all. She closes her eyes, shoulders curling inward like someone who has learned to brace for what's coming long before it arrives. The boy's breathing catches again. His eyes widen, his feet stop moving beneath the chair. He recognizes that file. He knows it means someone is finally paying attention. Judge Judy pulls the folder closer and opens it with deliberate calm. The pages shift softly, the sound cutting through the silence. Her expression barely changes, but something in the room tightens. Something inside those pages doesn't match what's been said. The defendant can't bear the silence any longer. "Your Honor, I can explain." "No," Judge Judy replies without lifting her gaze. "You wait." That single sentence strips the confidence from the defendant's voice, leaving her standing in her own unease. The judge turns one page, then another, until she pauses. At the bottom of a document sits a signature. Uneven. Rushed. A name that shouldn't be there at all. A signature from someone who had no legal authority to sign anything. "Interesting," Judge Judy says quietly. The defendant's breath falters. It's standard authorization. She needed permission. You forged it." The judge's voice sharpens just enough to stop her cold. "This document gives you authority over her finances, her personal records, even her legal rights." Judge Judy's eyes lift, sharp and cutting. And all of that without a single valid supporting form. A wave of shock moves through the courtroom. People in the gallery shift uneasily, as if the truth itself carries heat. "I was helping," the defendant insists, her voice beginning to crack. "She's not good with paperwork. She needed guidance. And you chose to provide that by signing her name for her?" Judge Judy leans forward. "By granting your self-control she never approved." Her tone hardens. "That is manipulation, that is coercion, and that is fraud." The mother's face collapses under the weight of it. Tears slip down quietly, not dramatic, not loud, just years of fear finally breaking through. The boy looks back and forth between them. Confusion slowly shifts into understanding, and that understanding turns into heartbreak. Judge Judy lowers the page, her voice dropping into something quieter, far more dangerous. "This signature," she says, tapping the forged name with her finger, "changes everything about this case." She turns the document toward the defendant. "Explain why your handwriting appears on her legal rights." The defendant lets out a sharp, strained laugh, too loud, too forced. The kind of sound that comes when someone feels everything slipping beneath them. But Judge Judy doesn't react. She sits still, allowing the hollow laughter to echo and fade on its own, leaving behind a silence far colder than any reprimand. "I was helping her," the defendant repeats, trying to steady her voice. "She needed someone. She was overwhelmed. Look at her. She can't manage on her own." The mother recoils slightly, as if those words physically struck her. Judge Judy turns sharply. "Do not speak about her as if she isn't sitting right here," she says firmly. "You will address me." The defendant tries to respond, but the words catch in her throat. The control she once held is gone. Judge Judy taps the document again. "You helped her by signing legal authority that was never yours. That is fraud. That is coercion. And it was never your decision to make." The mother's breathing becomes uneven, a soft sound weighed down by years of fear she's tried to suppress. I didn't understand the papers," she whispers. "She told me I had to sign. She said it was necessary, for my case, for my son." "And you trusted her?" Judge Judy asks, her voice gentler now. The mother nods, eyes shining. "I just wanted to do the right thing. I wanted stability." The defendant suddenly steps forward, urgency rising in her voice. "Your Honor, she's exaggerating. She always needs reassurance. I only stepped in because she couldn't handle things herself. She should be grateful I helped." "Grateful." The word lands heavily in the room. Judge Judy's expression tightens. So you exploited her vulnerability? No, the defendant snaps. I gave her structure. She would be lost without me. Suddenly the boy stands up from his chair, his fists clenched at his sides. She was scared of you, he blurts out, his voice shaking. You yelled at her. You told her what she could do. You said she had to listen or else. His mother reaches for him, but he steps back, his heart racing. He's carried this truth for far too long. The defendant's composure breaks completely. He's lying, she shouts, though her voice falters at the end. Judge Judy brings her hand down on the bench, not loudly, but firmly enough to stop everything. Enough! The room freezes. Your panic is revealing far more than your words ever could, she says. The defendant opens her mouth again, searching for another excuse, another version of the story. But nothing comes. For the first time, she looks small, trapped, exposed. Judge Judy turns back to the mother, her tone steady and direct. Were you afraid of her? The mother's breath catches. Her eyes close, her shoulders sink inward. And then, on a quiet exhale, barely audible, yes. The word settles over the courtroom like a shockwave. Judge Judy leans forward slightly. Then we need to uncover everything she's been hiding. The single word still hangs in the air, fragile but undeniable, as the defendant takes a step back like someone who's just been stripped of every layer of control in front of everyone. But it isn't the defendant's panic that holds the room. It's the mother's shaking silence. Some truths shatter with noise, others fall apart quietly, almost by accident. Judge Judy watches her with an unusual softness in her eyes. Thank you, she says gently. Telling the truth isn't easy when fear has been living in your home. The mother's shoulders tremble. She quickly wipes her tears, embarrassed by emotion she can't hold back. The defendant jumps in, her voice rising with forced outrage. Your Honor, she's upset. She's confused. She always reacts like this when she feels pressured. You can't take what she's saying seriously. Judge Judy looks up calm, steady, unmoved. Sit down. The defendant obeys, not willingly, but because something in her realizes that pushing further will only make things worse. Judge Judy turns back to the mother. You said you were afraid. I need to understand why. The mother tries to speak, but her voice collapses before it forms. She presses her fingers to her lips as if holding back years of unspoken words. The boy speaks instead. She always cried after talking to her, he says softly, pointing at the defendant. She would go into a room and lock the door. She told me it was just stress, but it didn't look like that. The mother closes her eyes, shame coloring her face. The defendant scoffs. Children misunderstand things all the time. Judge Judy turns sharply. Children recognize fear far better than adults like to admit, and today he's the clearest voice in this room. That statement lands heavily. The mother finally manages to speak, her voice thin and unsteady. I just wanted things to settle down. She said she would help me, that she would make everything easier. I didn't want to disappoint her. Disappoint her, Judge Judy repeats. She is not your guardian. She has no authority over you. Why would you fear disappointing someone with no legal power in your life? The mother's expression crumples. Because she made me feel like I couldn't manage without her. The defendant leans forward, her tone sharp. Because you couldn't. I handled your paperwork, your finances, your threats. The boy interrupts, his voice cracking. You threatened my mom. The defendant recoils as if struck. That's not true. Judge Judy raises her hand. Silence falls instantly. I want access to every form of communication between the two of you, she says. Messages, emails, voicemails, everything. The defendant's face drains. That's unnecessary. It is necessary, Judge Judy replies. Your behavior today is telling me far more than your explanations. The mother trembles. The boy reaches for her hand, holding it tightly, his courage growing where fear used to live. Everything that's been hidden, every message, every warning, every quiet act of control is now on the edge of being revealed. Judge Judy nods toward the clerk. Retrieve the records. Let's see the conversations you thought would never come to light. The screens flicker on, casting a cold blue glow across faces already tense with anticipation. For a moment, no one moves. It feels like the calm before something inevitable. Display the messages, Judge Judy instructs. The first text appears, just a few words, but enough to drain the color from the mother's face. Do not embarrass me again. A murmur spreads through the courtroom. The defendant shifts in her seat, trying to remain composed, but her fingers tap nervously against her arm. Your Honor, people say things in frustration, she says quickly. She was emotional. I was just guiding her. Judge Judy raises a single eyebrow. The gesture alone weakens the defense. Next message. Another text appears longer, sharper, carrying a clear undertone of control. I told you what to say. If you change the story, it will go badly for you. Stick to the plan. The mother covers her mouth, a quiet sob escaping the kind she used to hide behind closed doors. She's taking it out of context. The defendant rushes. She panics easily. Continue, Judge Judy says, not even looking at her. More messages fill the screen one after another, like a written confession. Why are you questioning me? Do not speak to anyone unless I say so. Remember what happened last time you didn't listen. That last one lands heavily. Even the bailiff stiffens. The boy looks from the screen to his mother, confusion slowly turning into realization. These weren't simple disagreements. They were control built word by word. Judge Judy leans back slightly, her eyes narrowing. Miss Marthy. Carter, these messages show a clear pattern: control, intimidation, and punishment. What would you call that? The defendant's voice wavers. She needed boundaries. She gets overwhelmed. I was trying to keep her from making mistakes. By scaring her, Judge Judy cuts in. I never scared her, the defendant insists, but her voice is unraveling now. The judge glances toward the boy. Did you ever see your mother afraid? He nods slowly. She cried in her room. She would say she just needed a minute, but it was always longer than that. A deep silence settles over the room, heavy and unavoidable. Judge Judy turns to the clerk. Show the final message. The last text appears on the screen, glowing with quiet menace. And make sure the boy stays quiet. He doesn't need to know anything he could use against us. The room seems to stop breathing. The mother's hand presses against her chest. The boy goes rigid, his small face twisting with confusion and hurt. And the defendant, her composure collapses. Panic floods her eyes, wide and unguarded. That message is being misunderstood, she blurts. You don't know the full situation. Judge Judy taps her gavel once, not loud but final. The only situation that matters to me is the truth and the safety of this family. She leans forward, her voice calm but cutting. What exactly were you trying to keep this boy from discovering? As the final message is read aloud, the mother gasps, not quietly, but with the raw shock of someone confronted by something long buried. The defendant swallows hard. The boy pulls inward, sensing that whatever comes next is about him. Judge Judy's voice breaks through the silence. Miss Bob Carter, what secret were you referring to? The defendant glances toward the mother, attempting one last silent warning. But this time, the mother doesn't look away. The fear is still there, but something stronger begins to rise beneath it. I asked you, Judge Judy repeats, what was the secret? The defendant wets her lips, trying to steady herself. It's complicated. Complicated is not an answer, Judge Judy replies. Tell the truth. The defendant hesitates. Her mask cracks. For a brief moment, she looks less controlled, more human, shaken, cornered. She never told him, she finally says, gesturing toward the boy. She never told him the full truth about his father. The boy's eyes widen. The mother closes hers. Judge Judy leans in slightly. What truth? The defendant exhales, like someone finally giving up a long-held defense. He thinks his father left him, that he didn't care. But that isn't true. She glances at the mother. She kept them apart. The mother's breathing becomes uneven. Her hands grip her knees tightly, her knuckles turning pale. Mom, the boy whispers, his voice small and shaking. Judge Judy softens her tone. Is that true? The mother tries to speak, but nothing comes out. Her lips tremble. Tears gather. Her whole body seems to fold inward, like someone carrying a weight too heavy to hold any longer. The defendant steps forward, pressing the moment. Tell them, she says sharply. Tell him his father tried to be there. Tell him you refused every time. Tell him. Stop. Judge Judy's voice cuts through the air instantly. She turns back to the mother. Ma'am, I need to hear from you. Is there truth in what she's saying? The mother's breath shakes. She looks at her son, really looks at him. His wide, broken expression, his trembling chin, the innocence slipping from his eyes. Then, with a quiet exhale that feels like surrender, she nods. The courtroom falls completely still. The boy's face crumples. The defendant takes a step back, stunned by the impact of her own words, realizing too late the damage she has caused. Judge Judy closes her eyes briefly, letting the weight of it settle. When she opens them again, they are focused and firm. You will explain, she tells the mother, but not yet. She lifts the gavel slightly, not to strike, but to emphasize what comes next. Because before we understand why you kept his father from him, she says evenly, we need to understand what role she played in that deception. The defendant's face loses all color. The boy's tears fall freely as the truth threatens to break the room all over again. The silence still hums with the confession when the boy turns to his mother, eyes glassy and wounded. The entire room seems to hold its breath for him because no child should have to learn something like this in a place like this. His mother reaches toward him instinctively. He pulls back. You said he didn't want me, he whispers, his voice cracking under the weight of it. Her lips tremble, but no words come, only guilt. Judge Judy watches them, her expression steady, marked with quiet empathy. She has witnessed heartbreak in courtrooms before, but rarely does it arrive in the form of a child. Miss Carter, she says, shifting her attention, you claimed the mother kept the father away. Her gaze sharpens. Show me the evidence. The defendant hesitates. Her confidence is gone. All that's left now is the rush of someone who realizes she's crossed a boundary she never intended to cross. I have messages, she stammers. Attempts he made, calls she ignored. The mother tenses instantly like she's been hit. Bring them forward, Judge Judy orders. The clerk brings over another folder smaller than the last, yet somehow heavier with what it holds. As the first page is revealed, mother hides her face in her hands. A call record. Several missed calls. One transcribed voicemail. Please let me see him. I'm clean now. I have a job. I know I made mistakes. The boy shuts his eyes tightly, the pain cutting through him like icy air. The defendant steps forward quickly, her voice shaking but edged with victory. See, she lied to him. Lied to her own child. I only told the truth. Judge Judy turns slowly, her eyes sharp and unyielding. No, she says quietly, her tone controlled but burning underneath. You didn't tell the truth. You used it as a weapon. Her voice stays calm, but every word lands hard. You took someone's private pain and used it to control a vulnerable woman. That isn't honesty. That's exploitation. The defendant tries to respond, but nothing comes out. Judge Judy shifts her focus to the mother. Mom, did you block the father from contacting his son? The mother lowers her hands, her face soaked with tears. I did. Her voice is fragile, breaking apart. He hurt me. He left us. He destroyed everything. And when he came back, I didn't believe he'd stay. Her breathing falters. I thought I was protecting my son. The boy swallows, his voice barely audible. You didn't protect me. You protected yourself. The mother falls in on herself, crying softly. Even the defendant looks shaken by the damage she helped bring into the open. Judge Judy allows the silence to linger heavy, necessary. We'll deal with the father's role later, she says evenly. Right now we're addressing the manipulation happening in this courtroom. Her eyes snap back to the defendant. Your involvement in this family's pain is not accidental, and I intend to uncover every part of it. She leans forward slightly, her voice softer now, but exact. Before we go any further, show me everything you've been holding back. A brief pause hangs in the air. Does regret erase wrongdoing? She continues. Or does justice require accountability, no matter how painful the truth may be? The defendant's hands tremble as she reaches into her folder and pulls out a thin envelope. It's creased, worn, the edges marked from being handled too many times, like something kept hidden yet never forgotten. The entire room feels the shift. Whatever is inside has been waiting to surface for years. Judge Judy gestures. Place it on the bench. The bailiff takes the envelope carefully and sets it in front of her. The mother goes pale immediately, her breath catching as if something unseen is tightening around her chest. Open it! Judge Judy instructs. The seal tears softly. Inside is a single photograph, faded in color, but sharp in meaning. Judge Judy lifts it, studying it first before turning it outward. The hospital room. Harsh fluorescent lights. The mother lies unconscious, an IV in her arm. Beside her, on a tray, sits a stack of documents with a pen placed into her limp hand. A collective breath is pulled from the courtroom. Judge Judy lowers the image slightly, her voice steady. Explain this. The defendant straightens, though unease flickers behind her composure. She was overwhelmed. She needed help. She was alone. You drugged her. Judge Judy cuts in sharply. No. The defendant snaps, then falters. She was medicated from a procedure. She asked me to help her complete the paperwork. The mother shakes her head forcefully. I never asked you, she cries. I didn't even know those papers were there. I woke up and you told me everything was already taken care of. Her voice cracks. You said I signed because I wanted stability. You did. The defendant fires back, losing control. You said you needed me, that you couldn't handle things on your own. I stepped in because you were incapable. Incapable, Judge Judy repeats, softly but with an edge that cuts deep. Or vulnerable. The defendant falters. Judge Judy studies the photograph. Again the hospital bed, the tubes, the stillness of someone unable to consent. Every detail speaks for itself. You presented legal documents to someone who was unconscious, unaware, and incapable of agreeing, she says. I was trying to help, the defendant whispers, but the words feel hollow. No, Judge Judy replies, placing the photo down with care. You were taking advantage. The boy moves closer to his mother, gently reaching for her hand, as if he's only now beginning to understand how much she's carried alone. Tears stream down the mother's face. You told me they were just insurance papers, she sobs. You said everything I signed was for his benefit. Her voice breaks. I trusted you. The defendant's expression twists. You were falling apart. Someone had to take control. The gavel strikes once, silencing everything. You confused control with compassion, Judge Judy says firmly. And that ends now. She signals to the clerk. Enter this photograph into evidence. The atmosphere shifts again, not with shock this time, but with clarity. Judge Judy fixes her gaze on the defendant. If this is the kind of help you provide, then what else have you been hiding about this family's past? The defendant's breathing stumbles just once, enough to reveal the panic clawing beneath the surface before she tries to steady herself again, pulling her composure back together like a mask she no longer fully controls. But masks don't hold when the truth keeps pressing. Miss Buzzin, Carter, Judge Judy says, her voice firm and unshaken, these documents, that photograph, your pattern is clear. The defendant forces a weak smile, one born not from confidence, but from desperation. I was helping her. She depended on me. She trusted me. Judge Judy folds her hands calmly. Trust is built on honesty. What you described is control. The defendant's hands start to shake. You don't understand, she snaps, then quickly softens her tone, trying to regain balance. She was drowning. I was the only one keeping her life together. The mother shakes her head, silent tears sliding down her face. You controlled everything about me, she whispers. You made me feel like I couldn't exist without you. That statement hits like a strike. The defendant's composure fractures further, cracks spreading through her voice and posture. I only did that because you were weak, she blurts out, then freezes, realizing what she has just admitted. Judge Judy leans in slightly. So she was useful to you? No, the defendant says quickly, voice dropping. She was safe. The boy watches quietly, gripping his mother's sleeve, his eyes wide, hurt. Searching begin to shift the atmosphere in the room. The judge notices. So does the defendant. Suddenly the defendant's voice breaks. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I needed someone to need me. I needed control. Everything in my life was falling apart, and so was hers. I latched on because I had nobody else. For the first time, her arrogance dissolves into something fragile and exposed. But the truth doesn't stop there. Judge Judy tilts her head. If your intentions were as you say, then why involve the child? Why were his messages mentioned? The defendant closes her eyes. Her shoulders drop. Because he deserved to know, she whispers. She lied to him too, and I thought if everything came out, she wouldn't need me anymore. Judge Judy's tone sharpens instantly. What exactly came out? The room freezes. The defendant looks between the mother and the boy, guilt overtaking her expression. He thinks his father abandoned him, she says quietly, but that isn't true. The boy stiffens. The mother's breath catches. Explain, Judge Judy orders. The defendant exhales shakily. The father tried to come back. He begged to be in his son's life, but she gestures toward the mother. She shut him out. She blocked him. She told the boy he didn't care because she didn't want history repeating itself. The boy lets out a small broken sound, his face collapsing with emotion. The mother reaches for him instantly. I was scared, she cries. I was trying to protect you. But he pulls away, tears falling freely. The courtroom falls into a heavy, shattered silence. Judge Judy exhales slowly. This isn't just manipulation, she says. This is a family shaped by fear, and a child finally seeing the truth through it. The boy looks at his mother, not up at her anymore, but through her. The mother reaches again, trembling, desperate, as if she could fix everything by touch alone. But he leans back, and that small movement breaks her completely. Judge Judy watches quietly, her expression heavy with understanding. Ma'am, she says gently, you need to speak. The mother nods, but nothing comes out. Her breath stutters. Her chest rises unevenly, like she's drowning in memories she never opened. I thought I was doing the right thing, she finally whispers. The boy searches her face for something solid: truth, apology, clarity, but finds only pain. Judge Judy leans forward slightly. Take your time, but he deserves the truth from you. The mother covers her face, shaking. Your father, she whispers, he was a good man once, but he changed. He hurt me. He left. He broke every promise. Her hands lower slowly, revealing tear-filled eyes. When he came back, I didn't believe him. I thought it would happen again. I thought you'd get attached, and then he'd disappear again. She swallows hard. I refused to let you feel what I felt. The boy stares at her, devastated. So you lied to me. The words break her. Yes, she whispers. I lied because I was afraid. Judge Judy's voice enters gently. Fear explains the choice, but it doesn't erase the impact. The mother turns toward her, tears falling freely. I didn't want him to grow up with the same pain I had. I thought if I protected him from the truth, I could protect him from getting hurt. Judge Judy tilts her head slightly, studying the weight of everything finally exposed. Safe from the truth, or safe from ever having to face it. Judge Judy's question lands with surgical precision, cutting straight through the mother's defenses. The mother breaks forward completely, sobbing as her body shakes. I was trying so hard, she cries. I was doing everything alone. I couldn't let anyone else hurt him. So I made our world smaller, quieter, controlled. Her breath stutters as she gestures weakly toward the defendant. And when she came in, I didn't even realize what she was doing, because I was already terrified of losing everything. The courtroom falls into a deep, heavy silence. Even the defendant looks stunned, not by the confession itself, but by the pain behind it. The boy shifts closer, gently brushing his mother's sleeve. A fragile act of connection returns after everything is being torn open. Judge Judy allows the moment to breathe, then speaks softly but firmly. It's time for the rest of the truth. Does your son deserve to know who his father really is? The mother freezes, trapped between what she buried and what she can no longer avoid. The boy wipes his face with a trembling hand. After a long pause, he nods, not from confidence but from a deeper need, answers he has lived without for too long. The mother's breath catches sharply, as if the air itself has turned heavy. She turns to him with red, exhausted eyes. I never wanted you to carry my pain, she whispers, but keeping it from you only created new wounds I never meant for you to have. The boy holds her gaze, really holds it, and something shifts. He is no longer asking, he is waiting. Judge Judy leans forward slightly, her tone softened but still firm. Speak to your son. Tell him what you couldn't say before. The mother nods, swallowing hard. Her hands tremble as she slowly unclenches them, as if releasing years of fear at once. Your father wasn't perfect, she begins. He was young, confused, overwhelmed, but when he left, he didn't leave you, he left me. Her voice cracks, and I carried that pain and passed it on to you. The boy's chin trembles, but he doesn't look away. When he came back, she continues, I didn't believe he had changed. I was afraid you'd get attached and lose him again. Tears fill her eyes. So I closed the door before you ever saw it open. The boy whispers, Why didn't you tell me he tried? Because I didn't want hope, she admits through tears. And I didn't want you to hope either. Judge Judy lets the silence settle, allowing the truth to fully land in the room. Across the courtroom, the defendant sits still, her earlier confidence gone. She looks at the mother differently now, not with superiority, but with recognition. Fear had shaped both of them, but only one turned it into control. The mother wipes her face with trembling hands. Everything I did, everything I hid, I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was build a world too small for the truth. A long pause follows. Then the boy moves again, slowly, hesitantly stepping closer and touching her sleeve. It isn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it is the beginning of understanding. Judge Judy watches the moment quietly. Children can carry truth, she says. It's lies that break them. The mother exhales a long, broken breath. Do you want to know more about him? She asks gently. The boy hesitates, then nods again, this time with intention. She begins to speak, but Judge Judy raises a hand. Before that, she says, her tone sharpening slightly. One thing first. How did Miss Carter become involved in all of this? The mother freezes. The defendant stiffens. Silence fills the room like a held breath. Judge Judy's voice deepens. Someone took advantage of a wound that wasn't theirs to touch, and I intend to find out who held the scalpel. The mother swallows shakily. She overheard me, she says, voice trembling. One night, I was on the phone with my sister. I was crying. I said I couldn't tell my son the truth about his father, that I didn't know how. The defendant flinches but stays silent. The mother wipes her cheek, struggling to continue. The next day, she showed up at my door, the mother says. She told me she could help me manage things, that she understood how to deal with complicated situations. Her voice breaks slightly, but she used what she overheard, my fear, my shame, to make me believe I couldn't handle my own life. Judge Judy nods slowly. She used your vulnerability to gain access. Yes, the mother whispers. At first it didn't feel wrong. It felt like advice, support, but slowly it changed. She started telling me what to do, then what I had to do, until I felt like I couldn't make decisions without her. The defendant's expression flickers caught between defensiveness and regret. I was trying to help, she says quickly. You were trying to take control, Judge Judy interrupts sharply. You inserted yourself into a family's private pain and built your identity around being necessary. The defendant's face tightens, emotion breaking through her earlier confidence. I didn't have anyone, she admits quietly. Helping her made me feel needed, important. I didn't know how to stop. Judge Judy's tone stays firm, meaning purpose does not give you the right to control another person. A heavy silence fills the room, as if everyone exhales at once after holding their breath for too long. The mother turns to her son, eyes red. I'm sorry, she says softly, for everything. For letting someone else step into our lives, for hiding the truth, for letting fear make decisions for us. The boy looks at her, torn between hurt and understanding, still trying to process everything. I just wanted you to tell me, he says quietly. The mother nods, tears falling again. I will. From now on, I will. Judge Judy gives a small nod, then turns her attention to the defendant, who is now visibly shaken. Your consequences will be addressed shortly. She lifts the gavel slightly. But first, this family needs clarity before it can have justice. The defendant pales. The mother steadies herself. The boy takes a slow breath, as if preparing for something he has waited a long time to hear. Judge Judy's voice softens just a fraction. Before we proceed, can people truly change? Or do they simply learn to hide who they really are? The courtroom feels different, now no longer tense, but drained, like a storm that has already passed. Judge Judy adjusts her glasses, letting the weight of everything settle. Then she looks at the boy. His face is still tear-streaked, but he sits a little straighter, now shaken but clearer. "You showed courage today," she says gently, "more than many adults I see in this courtroom." The boy nods quietly, absorbing the words. Judge Judy turns to the mother next. She still looks fragile, but something in her posture has changed. This closed off, more aware. "Your choices came from fear," Judge Judy says, "but fear does not justify secrecy. Your son deserved truth, even when it was difficult to give." The mother nods, tears rising again, but this time with a hint of acceptance rather than collapse. "And you are taking responsibility now," Judge Judy continues. "That is the first step toward healing." Then she turns to the defendant. The woman who once carried herself with control now looks diminished by her own actions. Her hands tremble. Her confidence is gone. "Miss Missons." "Carter," Judge Judy says firmly, "you exploited vulnerability. You entered a family's private suffering not to help, but to control it. That is manipulation. That is coercion. And it is unacceptable." The defendant lowers her gaze, shame finally taking hold. "Therefore," Judge Judy continues, "the forged documents are void. Any authority you claimed is revoked. This matter will be referred to the proper authorities, and you will have no further involvement in this family's life." The defendant closes her eyes, exhaling shakily relief and regret mixing in the same breath. Judge Judy turns back to the mother. "You will be provided with legal and emotional support services," she says, "not as punishment, but as protection for you and for your son."